Do you think that's a bad practice in general, or do you think it was just unnecessary and done intentionally to kind of slow you down?
I believe it was intentional to slow me down.
Exquisite holiday celebration.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
But
Listen,
here we are.
Here we are. It's the first, right? January 1st, 2024. It's a new year. Thank God. 2023 was a barn burner. A lot has happened since we spoke last. We spoke right before the, the runoff.
Right.
And that was about, I think it was like that Sunday or Monday. And then the election was the following week. A lot has happened. We had the city council meetings, that the two that were passed ordinances, changing the structure of the Eagle government. We also have had amazingly numerous articles and whatnot written about Eagle, Idaho. Mm-hmm. It started with LA Times, and then it went to Fox News, and then I looked it up this morning to just refresh before you came in, and it's no joke on Daily Mail UK.
Yeah.
Right. Like why they care about Eagle, Idaho
right.
is so beyond me. But what would you like to start with? And again, I have spoken with Mayor Jason about this as well. Again, always two sides. So I just want to be clear about that. He did want to address, I did an episode with Margaret Carmel from Boise Dev talking about the city council meeting. He had some things to say about that. If you'd like to start there, you absolutely can, or we can jump over to the LA Times articles.
Well, again, Matt, thanks for letting me come and kind of clear the air on a couple of things, I guess, now. Let's start off with the council meetings. I'm okay with addressing concerns that a lot of the public do have. They have concerns on what took place on a couple of the meetings past. And 11th hour lame duck movements that happen with any government is just flat out wrong. You should wait till the new elected officials get in and give them an opportunity to get the information firsthand and then make decisions on what they would like to do. Because this affects not only the new council coming in and the new mayor-elect, which happens to be me, it also affects the future of anything happening with it sets a prerequisite almost, or
it sets a precedent.
That's the word I really want. It's the precedence for what happens to future councils, what happens to future mayors, and not only for the city of Eagle, but you could take it as far out as you want to go, even nationally. I mean, think about that. And I think that's why some of the press from other areas have picked up on certain things, and we are obviously something to look at and say, oh, what's happening with Eagle, Idaho? They've only got 37,000 people there, yet there's news that is coming out of there that's just not the norm, I guess. And I'm a little taken aback with the fact that they did do some ordinance changes right before they are leaving off. Two people are leaving office, the current mayor and one of the council members. And so that does not sit well with me and a lot of the people that actually support me. And I think for the right reasons. It's not to, I feel like it could be looked at as a punitive thing that happened against Brad Pike, but it also has the ramifications of future elected officials and what the people that are elected in the surrounding area, Treasure Valley, for example, the mayors I'm going to be speaking with next month. We have a meeting coming up. One of their subject matters is, I know it's going to be what happened and why did it happen, and how could you not have some concerns that, hey, if the city council in any city doesn't like their mayor, let's just put ordinances together and let's stymie their ability to perform their duties and authorities for the public. And that's how I see it right now, is they could do whatever they want to Brad Pike, but when you do something to your constituents, your way of doing business for the city, I'm concerned with that, and I'm a little frustrated that did happen. I just think that they didn't get all the information prior to making the vote. That's my personal opinion on that. I have no validation to that, but I think there's some sour grapes there, and whatever was needed to make sure that Brad Pike had issues when he took office is what happened.
One thing that Mayor Pierce did say is that the concern was that there was going to be some degree of like obstructionist behavior by you, and that's not something like I've watched a lot of the city council meetings. There have been disagreements, but it hasn't appeared to me that you have necessarily obstructed or belittled the city council, right? Be that as it may, he was saying, "Hey, look, regardless, it's good practice to have city council be able to get things on the agenda at the exact same time as the mayor." Do you think that's a good practice as well? Or do you think that it's unwarranted and wasn't necessary?
Well, here's the deal. When you change a agenda in a 24-hour period, it has to be for an emergency purpose. It can't just be, hey, I got this new idea I want to bring in, and let's just amend the agenda because I want this put on now. It's like, wait a minute. The agenda's already been set. Unless there's an emergency that takes 24 hours notification for it, it has to be posted again, and everybody needs to be notified of it. I think that has some concerns with it as well. The interesting thing with this ordinance is when I asked the question to the current mayor, why are you doing this and why now? He said, because the council wants it. That put a huge red flag in me and a number of people that heard that statement, which indicates that did they have a serial meeting prior to that? So, I mean, did they know, each of them know? So how could the mayor say that, the council wants something unless they've had a discussion on it? That was kind of concerning to me. It's not kind of concerning, it's very concerning to me because we're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have discussions. It breaks the open meeting violation, which I've read the statute from the state in a council meeting prior to this last meeting, indicating that when you have a serial meeting and you discuss things prior to the meeting out in the public's eye, that's called a serial meeting, and you're breaking the open meeting violation for sure.
Okay, so that's a concern. Do you think it's bad? What I'm essentially getting at is the Mayor Pierce did indicate, hey, look, whether or not people like this or not, it's not a bad practice to have the city council essentially in a position where they can force an agenda item. Right. It wasn't that way when through Mayor Pierce's tenure, obviously. Mm-hmm. But what do you feel about that in general? Do you think that's a bad practice in general, or do you think it was just unnecessary and done intentionally to kind of slow you down?
I believe it was intentional to slow me down. And I'm just being honest with you and the public. I don't know anything that's out there in that type of ordinance that would require a change of an agenda topic within a 24-hour period. And if you listen to the meeting, I asked two requests actually. I asked for when we had to amend the agenda, begin with, and we all kind of missed that step of having to do an amendment to the agenda to begin with. Then I asked if it could be deleted from the agenda because I didn't think it was appropriate. And I made a motion and it was obviously no seconded, so it falls apart. Then I asked the request, can it be brought up under the after the consent agendas on number 7, which happened to be unfinished business, and take the place of that because we had a large crowd in the room that was specifically there to hear those agenda topics. They wanted to know what it was all about. Again, I made a motion and it was not seconded, so it fell apart as well. So those two requests were made, and then I asked during when the ordinances were being read, why are we doing this? Why now? I said, this is not right. I implore you not to do this, and it fell on deaf ears, which means, in my opinion, that there was already a preconceived vote whether they want to admit it or not, and that's where I'm at. I just try to be open and honest, Matt, with how I feel with the public, and this is exactly how I feel. If it's wrong, prove me wrong, fall in the sword and say, okay, guess what, I was wrong on that one. But ordinances come, and if they come up, well, there was no emergency needed to amend that agenda. So if there's amendments that need to be brought to ordinances, yes, we can do those in a timely fashion, and I'm supportive of that. I want those to come in front of us because sometimes things do need to be changed. That's why we have the amendments in the United States. I mean,
right.
and because they found there was a need for an alteration to something that are, a bill or something of rights, or an ordinance in the city or
Sure,
whatever.
sure,
So
sure.
there's times for everything. And I just thought it was inappropriate for these two matters to be done. And if the public doesn't remember, one of them, there's 3 auxiliary staff members that fall under the mayor's authority, I guess, and budget for sure. It's under the executive budget. And typically, traditionally speaking, for this whole time, they have had the opportunity to hire or fire or dismiss somebody that didn't meet the criteria of what they were after in their administration. So I didn't even get the chance, and here's one of the things, Matt, that frustrates me with that topic. I didn't even get the chance to interview these people, to ask them what they're doing, why they're here, what their qualifications are, who they are, or anything. And the rumor got back to me that I was going to come in and fire people. It's like, absolutely not. Why would I fire people? I don't even know what they're doing, pros or cons. I haven't seen any evaluations on any of these employees or anything. So I didn't get the opportunity to even have an orientation meeting with them. And then the second part is, historically and traditionally, it has been the fact that the mayor always set the agenda. Yes, there are other cities in the area that bring in the council president to set the agenda. Okay, if that's the case, all the last 4 years, one other person was the council president for 2 years, and I was the one this past year. Not one time was I asked to come in and look at the agenda, or to work hand in hand with the mayor to create the agenda. Now all of a sudden they want somebody to come in and help create the agenda with the mayor, and I haven't even had the opportunity to make one agenda in status quo like this current mayor had been able to do.
One Mayor Pierce did mention that, again, the concern is that you were going to be in some way obstructionist. And again, that's just what he said. My question to you is, in the 3 years, the initial 3 years, there was no issue with the council, right? Like, you guys and the mayor and everyone else worked just fine. It really seemed that towards the end, and I believe this is what Mayor Pierce said, towards the end, it was during the campaign when you said things or acted in a certain behavior that concerned people. With regard specifically to the city council meetings leading up to the election, were you like, one vote against the 3 votes for things? Were there any instances that you recall where there was like large conflict that delayed the happenings of the city, or things of that nature?
There was never a delay in any services, any decisions, any developments. So there's no obstruction to anything. We are elected from the public to be up there, acquire our own information, and to make our own decisions individually. So we have the right to vote any direction we feel is necessary for the betterment of the community. There was a few developments that I did not think were in a timely fashion, and quite frankly, were conservative in value. When you put high density into neighborhoods that are not comfortable, or the density levels are not in with high density inside a normal neighborhood with an R2, like two houses per acre or 3 houses per acre or whatever, and then you put a large conglomerate of high density in that, it doesn't mix well. And so there was 2 votes that I voted no on that. Of course, it's no secret that I voted no on Avamore, and it's only because it was the timing, in my opinion, wasn't right, and public safety had a big factor to do that, and services and taxes. So as we get into this, as the developments come in, Valnova and Avamore, both, we're going to have to see the how much tax base actually comes in, and if there's any subsidies that have to come from the current taxpayers. Because we've been told no, but if you only have a few houses built each year from a development, then they're not bringing in the same tax revenue that you normally would anticipate, because it's a fee-based budget, so those fees aren't coming in. So where does those monies coming to for any of the 10 taxing districts we have? The City of Eagle is just one of 10, and all of those other districts, if you don't get the money, the revenue coming in for the additional supportive services, then you are taking away from current taxpayers to subsidize those other needs, because once they're in your district, whether it's a sewer district, water company, school district, fire district, or the contract for the sheriffs, if those ratios are off, then you're going to see a deficit from the development side, and you're going to have to subsidize that with the current people because there's no other way. I mean, that's just dollars and cents. And that's a common sense. It's not. You don't have to be a economist to figure that part out. So, but the word I want to go back, Matt, to the word obstructionist. That's a very offensive term and a very offensive word to me. And today, I am not going to be holding back on some of the comments that I think that the public needs to hear because, quite frankly, I think there's a lot of sour grapes that have taken place after this election, and the public has spoken. And now we need to look forward to 2024, the first day of 2024 today, and look how we can bring this community back. We can work as a council and a mayor to focus on the needs of the public. That's all we're elected to do. Make sure the mayor's responsible for the well-being of their community. That's the number one responsibility for a mayor. I take that very seriously, and that's exactly what I plan on doing. There's a lot of things that have been fragmented over the last few years with the community. It's time for us to heal. It's time for us to come back together as one community. Even the people that live on the outskirts. You guys live in Dry Creek, you're on the outskirts. But Eagle affects you as a citizen living on the outskirts of the city because you're participating in that city as well. And your kids go to school, you shop there, you go to church, you do whatever. All these things have some connective tissue to it with being right on the outskirts of the city. So you're just as much... As a citizen, you're just as much as part of the community as a whole. Just because there's a border, it doesn't mean that you guys aren't part of the community of Eagle.
Right. Let's get into the articles that were written because, to be honest, I think the only person who won out of the articles that were written that were based off the LA Times story was the LA Times with any ad revenue at all. Like I thought the article in general really portrayed Mayor Pierce in a bad light. I thought it portrayed you in a bad light. I thought it portrayed anybody moving here with CalPERS, which is not just law enforcement, but it could be teachers unions, any public sector employee, with a CalPERS could move here. It was so ridiculous, and it portrayed Eagle as this community that's being grossly taken over by like insane retired, firemen. It was like, I don't know, maybe I'm missing it. Like it's not there. So talk to me about this article because again, and I did speak with Mayor Pierce about it, and he agreed that the article really took a lot of things he said out of context, which obvious. It's like you can't. It made it seem like anybody coming from California in his mind was absolutely not conservative. And it's like, that's not possible. Like there are tons of people. First off, Mayor Pierce is from California in his younger years and, moved here from California. And, like a ton of people that supported him were from California in the last, 5 to 10 years or even more recent. So again, I don't think it was a fair article at all or portrayal of you. Talk to me about what you got out of that.
Well, I was really surprised that we led the nation in as for CalPERS evacuees, if you will, from California and into other states, and quite frankly, the city of Eagle. Here's the deal, though. When you make any comments derogatory or misinformed or whatever against public safety, you've just now waged war on public safety. I mean, that's just the way it is. We servants, most of us got into the business because it's a servant-oriented calling, and I've stressed that term many times. Just by happenstance, I think that people moved here to Eagle that were in a CalPERS retirement from fire, police, teachers association, anything that had CalPERS attached to it. They left because of the way the government was being ran in California. California is one of the most beautiful states in the whole 50 states, this whole country. People know that. You're an hour away from the beach or the mountains. I mean, it's a unique environment there. Politics being what it is, there were some very socialistic, liberal views that got into the California politics themselves, and I talked a little bit about that in the article. And most people that are conservative, and the word conservative is getting misrepresented these days to all spectrums. You're a 1 through 10. So if you're a 2 on conservative scale and you're a 10, where's the difference? I mean, what difference in values of conservatism are there. But here's the deal for me personally. I knew we were going to move out of California when I retired. Okay. Not knowing what state to pick. I mean, we had some friends that moved to Eagle, Idaho, and they said, well, come check out Eagle. And I said, the first statement I said, where is Eagle, Idaho? And they said, it's just west of Boise. I said, well, I've been to Boise, so I know where that's at. But it was a teenager, so I don't remember, small towns and stuff. And back then, I think Eagle was 1971, so it was just in infancy of a city itself, probably a couple thousand people. But so we came and we checked it out, and we fell in love with it just like everybody else. So word of mouth is what's bringing people on this retirement, CalPERS retirees, fire, police, teachers, whatever, word of mouth from their friends and family that have moved here. They're saying, come here. We love it here. Well, we know you. We want you here. We want these type of people here. Let's talk a little bit about background, for example. Now, I can only give you fire and police. I can't do the teachers. But when you talk about the quality of people that are coming here from from California, all of these people have gone through written test, oral test, background test, psych test, numerous psych tests, getting hired by this department that they're working for, then going through an academy, then going through their training time with their own department. They've been vetted every step through this as what kind of quality person people are getting into public safety. So if you're wanting to know what type of people are coming to Eagle, Idaho, I'd say the very best. And I say that with all confidence because they've been vetted numerous times. What they saw in the state of California was contradicting to their values and the way they want to live. So they decided to move. Now, I can't tell you why they all decided to come to Eagle. And I think, like I said earlier, it's probably word of mouth and say, come check it out. And they fall in love with it. And I can't help what pensions were there, okay? That's just the way. I had to live an hour away from the closest fire department that I worked at because I could not afford to live in Silicon Valley. People can't afford to live in Beverly Hills in California. A certain amount of people can. Now, the pension that I certainly have, and it's on record, that is certainly not a lot of money, especially in California. That did not allow me to move anywhere outside of where the city of Hollister, where I raised my family for the most part until we moved here. So this notion of these people bringing their tax dollars here. Don't forget, when you move into another state, you pay federal taxes still for your pension, but you pay the state that you live in state taxes. So since 2012, I've been paying Idaho state taxes the whole entire time. The revenue that comes into Eagle with the funds that people that are coming here and owning homes, building houses, we have bolstered the economy of Eagle substantially. Millions of dollars, and I could confidently say millions of dollars have come into the coffers of Eagle because of the people that are on CalPERS coming here. Some of them have discretionary money. Some of them did sell their houses and make a nice profit and move here and buy his house cash on hand. I didn't have that opportunity. We didn't. That's not how ours worked out. But what I'm trying to get to is what kind of people you're getting when you have CalPERS retirees coming into the city of Eagle.
Right. And not just the start of the career, right? Like you had a 25, 30-year career in the fire department. So like if you were a lower quality of person, one, you may have not survived quite literally. And two, you wouldn't have survived in the career. You just wouldn't have been able to get there. One of the things that it really alluded to in the article was that you somehow were not conservative because you had a certain degree of retirement. Now, first off, for CalPERS, and by the way, I will one day be a CalPERS recipient because I was a tutor when I was at school at Berkeley. Yep. And dude, they yanked. I mean, if I got a paycheck that was $150, I was like, oh my God, it's like because I mean, it's a lot of tutoring to get to $150 when you're a Cal student. And they would always take like $20 in CalPERS. I was like, son of a bitch. It's like 3 days worth of food, right? So I'll get CalPERS one day, but you pay into it.
Exactly.
Right? And the idea that it was like, oh, you have this money that you paid into and that makes you not conservative. it's just like, how does that work out?
Yeah, when you pay a percentage of your check, every check you take back in the when I was working, I don't want to give it exact, but I think it was like 9% of my paycheck went straight
Somewhere
to
around
CalPERS.
10%.
Yeah, just went directly to CalPERS. And when we first started, by the way, in the first fire department I had, we also were taking Social Security out, and then they found you can't do that, so they made an adjustment for that purpose. But that added to your quarters of Social Security, and I'm on Social Security now, which also, here's something that's an important thing for people to understand too, is when you have a pension and you worked prior to and you made Social Security, you qualified for your quarters of Social Security, it's called a windfall penalty. They take money, Social Security takes money out of your Social Security check as a penalty for you having a pension. So even though you earn that money from like 17 to when I started the fire service at 29, 28, those years of working, even though I was in college, anything you did went to Social Security, right? I mean, so I earned every penny of Social Security, but because of the pension that I had, it's a windfall penalty, and I got monies taken out from the federal government against my Social Security check. So I'm penalized that way. So if people say, well, if you start when you're 20, let me give you an example. If you start when you're 20 years old and you work 30 years in the fire service, you retire at 50. 50 is the soonest you can retire. Okay, so somebody's put their 30 years in, right? But they're going to be with that pension the whole time. But or unless you worked side jobs, which another number of firefighters and police officers have other skills, so they work side jobs on their days off. And some of it sometimes is because for the economic purposes, obviously. But those Social Security monies that you acquired, you should not be penalized on that. Yet we were with that windfall penalty. And so people look at it, well, you got a pension. Well, yeah. Well, let's get even deeper into the pension, if you don't mind.
Sure. And by the way, this is not like a GM pension where, like the pension's ultimately bankrupted.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of problems with GM, but CalPERS in particular is a very financially strong and healthy organization.
Worldwide. They're one of the most lucrative businesses in the whole country, in the whole world.
Right. So you guys paid into this you were required as a fireman to
Right.
pay into CalPERS.
Right.
CalPERS amazingly, as a kind of a government institution, invested wisely, which never happens.
Right.
And you have money out of CalPERS that's self-sustaining. Like CalPERS isn't going bankrupt like Social Security or something like that.
Right.
Like CalPERS has enough money from the money you paid in and from how they invested it to pay you this money. So it's not like, GM going underwater and the people with retirements and the bondholders and stuff are like, no,
Right.
we're not budging an inch. Like,
Yeah.
CalPERS isn't going underwater. You're not the reason California is in a bad state of affairs. Like CalPERS is its own entity that invested its own money.
Correct. And that's a good point, Matt, with that. And it's because also when private sector, you pay into, stakeholders and,
Sure.
people they support a company. Now, if it goes under, that's a different situation than a government entity. When you're growing up, people make decisions on what they want to do with their lives. There is nobody out there that is restricted from taking the test to be a law enforcement or fire or police. I mean, I'm sorry, medical.
Sure.
Or teaching. And so all of those factors come into play. So you get to pick your future and your career, what you want. So to have somebody even bring up a suggestive term that there's some kind of negative penalty about having a retirement from public safety is frustrating to me. It's that's the only word I'm going to use right now, because it's like get in line, take the test. But if you want that future with you, because my brothers and my sister, they all have private sector jobs. Okay, so they get a 401k or whatever, that kind of stuff. But you make that decision to be in public safety, for example, and you take the perks, the positives and the negatives. Now we all know there's a ton of negatives that come with being a public servant. Okay, you risk your life, not every day, but you're potentially putting on the uniform and saying, do I go home tomorrow? And everybody that's in public safety knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so what you need to be is you need to be on your game for 24 hours or the 18 hours or 16 hours that the law enforcement works. You have to be on your game. You're on duty, period. And so that puts a lot of stress on you, right? And there's a lot of PTSD. There's a lot of things out there that people have now had to deal with, and concerns that the public in itself does not understand.
Right.
So, and I'm not trying to make a negative comment about people that are in the private sector. I think this country was built on private sector. That's one of the conservative values. I think private sector built America, and that's one of my things. I'm a traditionalist. I think your family should be a family, for one,
Right.
and to do traditional things in life that that are the norm, and that's where my conservative values come into play, because I'm a traditionalist in that respect. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the Lord. I mean, obviously, I'm a Christian, so I think Christian values are one of the mainstays of my life personally. But I'm not pushing that on anybody. That's the conservative flair, means that you get to do what you want. This is a free country. And I go back to CalPERS people coming to Eagle, Idaho. Right. You can go wherever you want. You can live wherever you want. You don't have to show papers. You don't have to stop at the border, and you have to apply to come into Idaho or Tennessee or Florida or New York, anywhere. So I want people to feel, when people come from California to Idaho, those people are coming for conservative valued reasons. Okay, they're not coming to bring the socialistic liberal flair of what they left. Why would you do that? Why would you come from a liberal state and come into a conservative state? It's going to be apples and oranges. You're not going to be in there. Now, people will say, well, we don't want to turn Eagle into any other city within this area. Of course we don't. I want my traditional values and my conservative values to be in the forefront of all decisions I make, and I'm making it for the people, and I'm making it for the betterment of the people as a collective community. So the notion that people are coming from California to Idaho, especially Eagle, I think you're getting the cream of the crop with the people there.
Yeah,
I really do.
I very much agree with you, actually. And overwhelmingly, the Secretary of State put out a bunch of data recently that showed 75% of people coming from California register Republican immediately. But beyond that, there's also sentiment that, like, oh, maybe they're not like Idaho Republicans, right? And they're not Idaho conservatives. I haven't met a single person from California. I take it back. I have met one, and it was a complete oddity. But aside from that, and same question to you, why would you move here if, like, this is kind of your thoughts on things? But in general, except for that one person, I haven't met anyone else from California that wasn't like waving the American flag, absolutely believes in the Second Amendment, absolutely believes in the First Amendment, very much believes in family values and the family unit, self-determination, autonomy. Like, the number of people moving here that are self-employed or, have their own gigs. It's like almost everyone. I don't know anyone. I only know one or two people from all the people that I've met from California here that have jobs that aren't, like complete self-determination, right? Or worked in some capacity as you did, which is, hey, look, I'm running into a burning building. To that point, I think people forget the nastiness of what you go through to get benefits of things. I think that's just human nature. I have siblings, and I have a certain amount of very limited success in my life, but I have some success, and nobody remembers what you go through to get there. Point in case, my dad recently moved here, which I'm very happy about, and he used a VA loan to buy a house here. Awesome. Bought it, and VA allows for 100% down payment under certain circumstances, and he took advantage of that. And I looked and I was like, God bless it, man. You got this house, and, he's in his 70s, and he was able to pay them. He's able to afford the mortgage, which is great, but he didn't have to come out of pocket for the down payment. Right. And it's like, okay, that's awesome. How did you get that? Oh, I don't know. You flew helicopters in Vietnam at 20 years old. Like, the benefit is so minuscule compared to the risk of what he did for that. My brother-in-law is a police officer in the city of Berkeley. And I remember him going into the police service in his 20s. And I was like, gosh, man, that's a really rough gig. He's like, well, if I survive, there are benefits on the other end of it. And he has gone through some of the most hellacious things. He was there when there were riots. He had to work in the special victims unit. One time there was another guy that was going to Cal at the same time as me named Matt Todd, oddly enough. And he was in a frat. And as such, faces whatever. So I get this text from my brother-in-law one day saying like, "Hey, you got a doppelganger in this frat." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Like the Matt Todd. Yeah, I know that guy." And then I put two and two together. I'm like, "What are you doing in the frat house?" And he was like, "Yeah, exactly." It's like, because he's there
Right.
with somebody who got like assaulted. Like, it's just horrible. And again, he didn't make the policies. He didn't design the pensions. He didn't design any of that. And Berkeley has, I believe, has its own retirement plan for its public servants. But it's like, if he comes out of there and has a pension and has enough money to move somewhere that he feels more reflects his values, I think he absolutely should be welcomed in any community as somebody who really put in time. He's not Berkeley. He didn't design Berkeley. He didn't design the insanity there.
Right.
He has a retirement. He put his life on the line. He's seen things and had to deal with people, the likes of which I will never have to see or deal with.
Right.
And I respect him and honor him. And I think it's a wonderful thing that he will be able to retire before he's 70, because like, how much of that can you take into your 60s, right?
No,
And
exactly.
and again, anyway, I feel very strongly about that. I mean, I have a lot of service members in my family, current and retired, and public service people in my extended family. Yeah, I agree with you. I think those people should be welcome here, and it shouldn't look like a bad thing that you moved out of the state that is paying you what they agreed to pay you and what you paid in on.
Right. And I appreciate the comments on that too, because I like, my oldest son is Marine, so I mean I'm very thankful for him serving his country at a young age, and stepping up and hearing that call. But also anybody that hears the call and makes the sacrifice, and I'm going to say there are nasty calls, absolutely, and you've got scars and memories to prove that. But here's the deal: also, when you have small kids and you're working on their birthday, you're working on Christmas, you're working on all the holidays. Sometimes you're not around a third of their life. Here's what people forget in the fire service, especially. You're not around your family for a third of your life. You're with their secondary family in the fire service. I'm not going to talk about the law enforcement because they have different schedules and different needs. I'm just going to specifically talk about what happens in the fire service.
And if I may interject,
Yeah.
my brother-in-law was working nights for years. So
yeah.
he would go to work at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
And then, like, I remember I was getting a cup of coffee with my wife. We were living in Berkeley. And we're like, oh, we could swing by. His name's Matt. It's like, we could swing by and say hi to Matt. Like, because it's 8 a.m. and he's getting off work. So,
Right.
and again, not to take anything away from fire, but
No,
police
no,
have horrendous, like, when we're asleep, I want to know there's somebody wandering around looking for
Absolutely.
bad guys.
Yeah, and to that point too, is that I think they have a harder schedule, if you will, because there's day swings and graveyards. So and once in a while they switch. They have to switch, so their sleeping habits are off and everything. And quite frankly, fire and police, that's why you typically, after you retire, your lifespan is shortened because of all of the stress that you've gone through while you're working, and the element of the community, the type of calls you do go on. So I hold law enforcement in high regard because back in 1986, I got hired by the city of Fontana to be a police officer. I went through the San Benito. That's how you always do this because I lived in San Bernardino County Sheriff's Academy.
Sure.
And I resigned because that was not I wasn't designed to be a police officer. There's a certain skill set, a certain mental skill set you have to be a law enforcement, a police officer or a deputy, which is the same thing basically. But so I hold them in high regards. So I want them to that's why I'm so passionate about making sure their ratios are in line with the community. It's not just the call volumes, it's also officer safety has to be put into that equation as well. So they know that they have backup. They need to have some support on calls because calls can go very wrong very quickly. And we've all seen those results. We just had another Oakland police officer die 2 days ago. There are things that happen we've had officer-involved shootings here. With one of our deputies was thankfully didn't die, but he was shot a couple of years back. Boise's had a couple of shootings where officer involved where they've been shot and one lost their life, and I think they have earned every cent, every penny that comes to them. I think they've earned it, and including myself, knowing what I've had to go through in my career, and I appreciate and respect each one of them, and I can't wait to always shake their hand and tell them how humbled I am to be in their presence.
Well, again, as somebody who was a public servant, again, I had friends in the fire district in where you were. I mean, you guys had to put up with a lot of shit. Yeah. So thank you for what you did there. Here we are to this. There's an aspect of conservatism and essentially saying that, I want to word this really properly. There are lots of different ways to get things done. Okay. And public safety, for instance, is one that really took front and center with this last election. And it appears that there was one group of people saying, hey, the amount of crime we have right now does not necessitate really increasing law enforcement. And again, we did add 2 officers, 100%. But it doesn't necessitate getting closer to the 1 per 1,000. And then there was another group of people saying, okay, I understand that the amount of crime that we have right now is not bad, but 1, we're growing, and 2, not just population, but geographic range, having annexed in Avamore should be a big consideration. Somehow these 2 groups all of a sudden didn't become conservative together. It was like one of the group originally is like, hey, we don't want to add more police officers. That makes us conservative. And the people that want to add more police officers are liberal, right? Or they're left leaning. And it killed me because it's like, okay, well, listen, I've been to California and I can tell you, wanting to increase the number of police officers is not a liberal thing. Now, there are all kinds of problems with unions where there's plenty to be said about that. But talk to me about the habit of this community to really start kind of usurping the nature of conservatism and say, my idea is conservative and anything that's not my idea is not conservative. Because that's essentially all that has started happening. It's like anyone's like, oh, well, this person's a rhino or this person's not a real conservative. And that just seems disingenuous. There have to be, everybody can be conservative. Not everybody, but you can be conservative and think that there's a different way to get an end goal. Everybody wants public safety, and there are different ways to get public safety. Right. And there are different opinions about what should be done with public safety. Wanting one versus the other, to me at least, doesn't seem that it totally negates the reality of your conservatism.
Well, and it doesn't. And here's the funny thing about when you're paying your tax dollars, everybody pays the same taxes. Okay, so the service levels that you're providing for a community from the city has to be equal across the board. And one of the topics I want to just bring back real quick in about how public safety can correlate with this is that when I walked into a emergency, I did not care what political background you had, color, race, creed, religion, whatever. I was there to serve you. All of us are, to serve the people. So when you're paying your tax dollars to the 10 districts, and the city as one, and you your expectations are all the same. All the citizens should be giving the same service, the same level of service, and the same quality of service, obviously. So what I say when everybody probably has, believe it or not, some conservative values within their own makeup. And some might say they may have a little tendency maybe to some liberal thoughts. I don't know. I'm not going to put words in people's mind.
Right. Chris Rock had a great bit about this. He's like, nobody's 100% conservative or liberal.
That's
right?
My point.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my point. But what you are is 100% a citizen of Eagle. So there's where the harmony and the bringing back together. Let's work on the needs of the community first. And then I've said this numerous times, and then the wants will trickle down through the economic trickle down as to the wants will be brought on as well. But when you want to live in a community that you feel is safe, okay, so you need to be proactive in your how many in your ratios. You have, as we increase, like you just said, that we've geographically doubled. Our population is at 37,109, I think is the exact right now. But we have developments that are coming into play right now, which is only going to keep increasing the population. So you need to put a strategic plan in place with the professionals, with all of these taxing districts, entities. You're not just, I don't want to just harp on just public safety. You have to look at the sewer district. You have to look at the water companies. You have the school districts. You have to look at all these other entities that provide quality of life for the citizens of every city, but we're just focusing on Eagle right now. So you need to make sure those ratios, those capacities are available. And if you do not have everybody participating, then somebody's subsidizing, right? And you don't want those subsidies coming in. And I think that was a shortfall with California government, is you subsidize things, you bring in different socialistic elements that everybody should get everything for free. Well, that's not reality. I mean,
No.
we pay,
Yeah, right.
everybody pays something for everything. So one of the things I want to make sure is the public is very well educated to how government works, for one, in the city of Eagle. Cut off what you learned in other states. And I'm not just saying cut off California, cut off every other state, because there's state statutes from Idaho that are different. The laws here are different. The city ordinances and the city codes are different. So just kind of put all that aside and start assimilating into what you could provide for your community as well. And another thing about when you bring retirees into a community, discretionary monies come with them. And that's another thing. And volunteerism comes in with them. There's a high probability that your quality of life for your community is going to be enhanced by these people that are retired coming in, because they bring those different components with them. They bring knowledge. They bring, like I said, discretionary funds, and they bring the high propensity to, I want to volunteer. I want to do something. Being retired is not all that great, because you sit sedentary and all of a sudden your brain goes, your body goes, everything starts shutting down, and you just kind of fade away.
Right.
So the opportunity for people coming here and moving into Eagle, I'm very convinced that there's high quality citizens coming in that are living in our community, and it's only going to enhance and make our community better, stronger, and more cohesive as time. This ratio, this level of 1 to 10, let's just use that scale of, I'm more conservative than you are. It's subjective in its own terms, because it's subjective to, just like art. Art is in the eye of the beholder. It's subjective to somebody's style and liking. But I think if you're hitting the fundamentals of providing service for the community, you're very conservative. You're making sure, because we're a zero-based budget, we can't spend any more than we have our revenue. You'd have to take savings out, which we did on the sheriff's contract. But you stay within your means. You live within your means, just like you try to do it in your home budgets. You try not to exceed that, so you're in this deficit spending stuff, or you're deep in credit. We don't do that in the city. We are zero based, and we only use the monies that come in. Our revenue, it was $52 million last year. Before, it was almost $60 million. It was 59 and change. But each year you stay within that budget, and that's a conservative value in itself, because you are forced to live within your means. And I think that's a good barometer for how the public works, or the public sees government working. And it's also a good example of making sure young couples coming in here, they can look at, how's my government? If my government's living in a deficit, why do I care? Right. Well, I think it's imperative that we make sure that the public sees a good stewardship program within the city, and I think we are doing that. And I'm looking I'm looking forward to being able to work with the people that were elected. I'm looking to making sure that we can find the solutions for the public. We're not going to all agree with everything, just like the votes. It's not. It's okay if you have difference of opinion. It's okay if we vote differently. But what we're all hopefully trying to do is bring a better community to the citizens of Eagle.
Yeah. the idea of what you're talking about with the nuance of essentially conservatism on a spectrum, right? I think the principles of conservatism, right, fiscal responsibility, family values, autonomy, self-determination, those are great. But even Mayor Pierce admitted, he's like, listen, when you're dealing with a city, you can't, like, the idea of just no government spending or limited government. It's like, okay, yeah, until to a point, right? Because at some point you have to have government programs. It's going to benefit everybody if we do these things, be it whatever organization or commission you might want to fill in there. It's better if we have, for instance, Mark Butler was in here. And he was like, listen, I landscaped part of 55. He's like, you're going north from McCall. You look on the left, it's landscaped. You look on the right, it's all grass.
Right.
He was like, that was me. I landscaped the left, right? And he was very proud of that. And he is right. Once he pointed that out, I started looking at it. It's like, man, if both sides looked this way, it would be a real bummer. But this left side looks good, and I'm sure it costs the city of Eagle something, but he's absolutely right. So there are benefits that people get out of some degree of government spending, and that's, as frustrating as that may be, it's like, look, you're going to have to give. You can't take the principles of conservatism to the nth degree and then just hit a dead end. But beyond that, I also don't think it benefits the city of Eagle or the citizens of Eagle or the surrounding area to essentially just say, hey, my way's the real conservative way, right? Because again, even as everybody admits, it's like you got to have some degree of wiggle when you're dealing with a city. And hearing people, for instance, say that you're liberal, or here's a different question, very much specifically on this, the idea of you bringing liberal policies in here. I keep asking about this. I'm like, what? Brad ran on law enforcement. You ran on revitalizing downtown, and you ran on not allowing growth to explode, doing what you could to manage. And now, even that, it's like, well, the free market reigns, right? Like we have zoning, and if developers come in and they want to spend the money, But those are the three things. I have yet to understand if there's another more liberal thing that you're like hiding under. Is there, like, did I get that right? Those are the three keys that you ran on?
And I want everybody to succeed, okay, in life. I want them to be successful, okay? Private sector, public sector, it doesn't matter. You feel your niche and you go forward with that. But let's even go back to when you do landscaping for a development. Okay, there's requirements. There's landscaping requirements, design review, and everything that goes through. So we hold a developer. These are the standards of Eagle. Now, do what if you want to develop here and you want to build here, these are our conditions that we do. I think beautification of a city is not a liberal view. I think it's a very conservative view because it adds to the quality of life, which is...
Well, look at all the liberal cities, Brad. They're not very beautiful.
Yeah,
like you want to go hang out in San Francisco, it's not very beautiful.
And cleaning up the streets and the sidewalks, thank you. I mean, that kind of stuff. And that also comes into play, again, with, I got to go back to one other topic with public safety, is that I used to ride my bike down the Santa Ana River all the way to Bolsa Chica and Newport Beach and stuff. My friend and I would ride our bikes. It's all homeless encampments now, okay? You cannot go through there. That means public safety is being pulled to take care of those situations away from what the original design for law enforcement and fire and EMS protection, medical and fire protection, okay? So those jobs have been given new topics to go deal with, and that's a society issue, that's a mental health issue. Those are all these elements that all of a sudden, everybody in fire and police and everything have to come into play, and all of a sudden be these doctors and these social workers and everything like that. So there's a place, again, for when you hear the word social, I mean, it makes it sound like it's a socialistic viewpoint, but it's community too. You got to remember social, it means community as well. So you should be reaching out and taking care of your neighbors, taking care of the disenfranchised and misfortunate public. But here's, again, I think the churches have got away from that. The churches were the ones that used to take in the homeless, feed the needy, and take care of them. And now we're saying government has to do that. I think let's take some responsibility as a community on ourselves too. And if there's people that are having issues and they're just down on their luck right now, for example, there are avenues that I think society has to come back into play and take care of them. And so, but it's not a socialistic, it's not taxpayers' dollars paying for that. A lot of times it could be back to the volunteerism. It can be back to the churches participating in the homeless, in things of that nature. It doesn't always have to be the reliability of government. I mean, government's taking care of what government's supposed to take care of. And quite frankly, protecting the citizenry and making sure that the quality of life has an opportunity, that's where I think we should be. We don't need to get so far into it that all of your tax dollars or my tax dollars are going to one particular item.
Right. And the idea, the two things you said in particular, you're like, look, I want everyone to do well, right? And
Absolutely.
two, that you're saying, hey, look, society needs to take care of some mental health. Let's just use mental health drug addict people. But you're not saying that you want everyone to do well and it's the government's job to get everyone doing well. You're not saying society needs to take care of some people that have mental disorders and it's the government's job to step in, right? Like, we can have the idea that we want everyone to do well. That doesn't mean everybody's going to do well, and that doesn't mean that the government's going to do something to try
liberty,
to get it right.
And the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit is the pursuit. It doesn't mean it's an absolute.
Right. And again, the nature of helping people with drug issues, mental health issues, these are all really important things. And the tendency of the liberal leaning states like California, and again, I spent time in Berkeley and Oakland, is atrocious. But the idea is like, oh, we need to keep throwing billions and billions of dollars at the homeless problem, and like the government's going to solve it. The government's going to solve it. And it's like, man, it hasn't gotten.
I was going to say, it's still there.
It's
still there.
From the time
when
first time I stepped foot in that crappy sidewalk of Berkeley in 2000. To right now, I go back periodically to do things, see family and whatnot, and I have to go through Berkeley, and it's like, oh my God, it's insane here. Like, it's gotten even worse. Like, you can't believe it. I take video every time I'm there. Like, it is actually worse, and I thought it was a hellhole when I was there. So, yeah, again, the emphasis of civic participation and people in society, not the government, but people in society helping those in need.
Taking
really
pride
important.
for your own community. Right? That's an important topic. Be part of the community you want. Create the community you want. Be part of the success of the community you want. Those are kind of like, they should be no-brainers. I can't tell you how many times, well, if somebody will do that, let's let those guys do that. Let's go. No, if you see a need, fill a need. Right? I mean, what it's going to make you feel better about being a good person, for one, and you've helped your community. I mean, I want us to be the light on the hill. I want people to look at Eagle. I mean, we're world news right now. I mean, who would have thought Eagle, Idaho was world news? I mean, with this the CalPERS letter that went out. Nobody would have thought that those things. I want those things to be positive things, though. I want them to go, Eagle is being proactive at their needs. They're meeting the community's needs. Any of this stuff that gets taken away, service level wise, see a need, fill a need. I keep going back to that. So it's not the government's responsibility to take care of you and your family and how clean your street is. If you see something out there, pick it up. I mean, I want those qualities as well. I mean, I want things to be. I want people to be proud of the city of Eagle, that they live in Eagle, and people look at it, oh wow, I wish I could live in Eagle because they have, they're a community, they're a well-oiled machine. Let's at least strive for that stuff. It may not be realistic in terms of the reality of it, but let's strive to be a higher level of life, of quality in service to people. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, and look, to be really frank with you, fuck the LA Times.
Well,
like, fuck you guys. You flew up here. You portray both the outgoing mayor and the incoming mayor exceedingly poorly. You do very little to find the common ground that so many people are striving for. Right. And you know what, man? You got your own fucking problems in LA. Right. Why are you coming up here causing problems? And like, I was just so frustrated by that article. And then to see Fox pick it up and then see, Daily Mail UK.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It's pretty slow news day, right?
Oh my God. And it's just, it's really frustrating. I am not perfect, but I work really hard to bring people back. I'm not trying to persuade people necessarily one way or another. What I'm trying to do is offer both sides, because I truly believe if you offer both sides, more people will open their eyes and be like, oh, there's a center here. Like, we actually largely want the same thing. That's a point that Brian Allman brought up. I recently had him on the podcast, which is awesome. It hasn't published yet, but he was great. We talked for almost 2 hours. Like, this is awesome. But he brought up a really good point, which is, look, speaking of the election, he said, you have two people that are both conservative. So what they have to do and what people supporting them do are trying to exacerbate their differences. But in reality, they probably agree on like 98% of stuff. And then they disagree on, adding how many more law enforcement people to add. And maybe they disagree on what to do with Avamore. And they disagree on a couple little things. It's like, but overwhelmingly, they're in agreement, right? For years, there was no drama or nastiness on the city council and the city council meetings, right? At least from the government standpoint. You always have unhappy citizens, but
I mean, we want them to be able to come and express their concerns to the public. How in the world are they going to get their information out? I mean, social media is the platform nowadays, and we all use this. I mean, we're using it right now, and I think it's a viable tool. But I want to make sure the public always feels like at least they're being heard. They may not agree with what I'm telling them, but at least they're being heard. And that's where my office, anybody else in leadership's office, should always be open to the public. Emails, phone calls, text, whatever. I want to hear from them. I don't necessarily like the negative slander. I mean, nobody likes that. I mean, if there's something that I'm guilty of, I'll follow the word. I keep telling people that I will, if I make a mistake, and I do make mistakes, I will, if you educate me to it and find out that, hey, I was wrong, I'm going to admit I was wrong, because we're human beings as well. That's why they have erasers on the end of pencils, is because people make mistakes. I mean, it's like, why in the world would you need that eraser? Well, it's because you're going to make a mistake.
Right. And cancel culture is a distinctly liberal thing. Like the idea that somebody should slip up once. And again, it's like whatever the slip up is, but it's like cancel culture has developed out of the people that were in charge of social media platforms, allowing people to be erased from essentially history completely. That is a distinctly liberal practice. It's like, it's unbelievable to me.
But we learn and we build. These are building blocks to society. These are building blocks to our country. We learn from our mistakes. We glean off our successes, and we build forward. We're always going forward. We're proactively, and that's back to public safety. We have to be proactive, and we have to think for the future. We can't just think for today's terms and today's level of services. We, in all of those different taxing districts, like I said, we need to make sure that we are looking to the future, and you will not go into a deficit spending by being proactive. You just have to make sure you're allocating your funds, your monies, your taxpayers' dollars to the needs of what they really need. They want to know. Again, they want to feel they're safe, and I think for the most part, people feel they're safe. But if you're not proactively looking to the future, every city, I could give you numerous cities in California that were beautiful cities, well maintained, no crime, blah blah blah, everything. And look at them today; they've deteriorated because the needs were eliminated, and we want these bright and shiny objects. Go get what we want. Let's just want fast service. Immediate. I want things done immediately. I mean, computers, fast foods, everything now, give it to me now. There's something that has a quality to it when you take your time and you well thought out program or a process here. And that's what I think we need to make sure is we're not going too quickly. And so I've heard a negative comment that Brad Pike wanted to hire 10 deputies. What I said is we're 10 short. Realistically, we can't. Matt Clifford, our sheriff, can't even provide 10. If we had some magical sum of money came in all of a sudden and it went directly, he couldn't provide the deputies for us because there's a whole process of time, and he doesn't have the bodies either. Boise doesn't have the bodies. Meridian doesn't have the bodies. The only people is CUNA and STAR, the only ones that have got up to their ratios by being proactive and thinking outside the box. And it's okay to glean successes off other communities. You don't have to hoard your own information because we all commute through these communities. We all live with our friends and family live in these communities. We are a larger community than just Eagle. And I want to make sure everybody feels that when they come into the city of Eagle, that they're here and people appreciate them here, that they're spending money here.
Right.
They're providing a quality of life for other people here. And so just because you live, there's a border separation here, and I'm not talking national borders by any stretch. I'm talking about America, where you can go wherever you want. We are the land of the free, and we are the home of the brave. I just want to make sure people remember that part. We have a lot of brave people out there still that are wanting to do the right thing for their community. Those are the people that I want to associate with.
Well, Councilman, soon to be Mayor Pike, I really appreciate you taking the time. As Jason said it in his interview, he's like, look, the election's over, right? And he wants the best for Eagle. You want the best for Eagle.
Absolutely.
It's not, the LA Times and the Fox thing bothered me so much. It's like, you're not helping.
Yeah.
You're not helping. You essentially just crapped on both of the people that are both trying to better Eagle. Mm-hmm. That's inappropriate. So I appreciate you taking the time coming in here, giving me your thoughts on it.
Absolutely. It's exhausting. Every day has something in it.
It's something.
I want people to know this too. I like Jason Pierce. Okay. I think he's a nice guy. Okay. I don't want people to think that I'm out to do any harm for him and his family. I hold him in regard. He did a great service to his community, and I appreciate the time and effort he put in. And I'll leave it at that.
Did you ever read The Golden Finch?
No, I haven't.
It's it was a very popular book, and it actually has become a series. I haven't seen the series, but the point is, at the end of the book, this guy has been shepherding around this famous painting that he accidentally got, all these things. But the point is, he's like, look, love it or hate it, I took care of this famous work of art. It was the Finch, right? Okay. He's like, for a period of time, I was part of this story, right? I was the person here, and it'll be different people after me. Mm-hmm. It was different people before me, but I was part of something, right? And Jason was mayor when my family wanted to move to this area. And I told him this. I was like, I heard great things about this area, and I heard great things about the local government, and heard great things about all the people here. That's why I wanted to move here, right? And you were a huge part of that, and now you're going to be a huge part of that. And so again, regardless of who won the election or not, you're both out here trying to better the community, and you're both going to be part of it. And it would be awesome for our community. I mean, truthfully, I'd love to see our community look at the LA Times and say, go fuck yourself. Don't come up here. Yeah. Don't come up here causing problems, trying to chase a news cycle, and portray people that have left trash ass LA and San Francisco as bad people because they're not spending their money there. And by the way, I looked this up. About 85% of all CalPERS dollar go to California. So that leaves 15%, about $3 billion on an annual basis, that get distributed not just within the U.S., but within the entire world. Oh, yeah. And it just so happens that Eagle has a greater portion than other places. But what portion is that? Yeah. Is it $3 billion? Is it $100 million? Right? Is it $1 million? I mean, think of the distribution all across the entire world. Sure. It may not even be that much money. And for them to come up and browbeat first responders for moving out of California when they know exactly what California has turned into, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Sorry, I get so heated about this.
I like people that have passion behind their motivations. I mean, and certainly
I have some
we
passion.
share those. yeah,
for sure. Right. Well, again, thank you for coming in. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And good luck in 2024.
Yep. You'll hear from me more. Right?
All right. This podcast is brought to you by MTU Studios. If you're looking to start a podcast or need content for your business or personal use, content of any type, please reach out to MTU Studios. MTUstudios.com. We'd love to help.